Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Landscape Ontario Waterloo chapter. We're excited for everyone to be here tonight. And yeah, this is in a series of unlocking your full business potential. And we're happy to have everyone here, and we're ready to get going. So tonight, before we get started, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Grant Harrison. I'm from Nextra Consulting, and just be able to facilitate these group of chapter meetings to bring you a bunch of stuff based purely on the CLP program and how you can take that CLP program and integrate it into your business. So if you're not able to join us, you're on video, it's great to have you. There's a series of the videos. We'd love to encourage you to go back and watch some of the past ones or some of the future ones if you're not able to join us. So tonight, what we're going to be talking about, actually before we go into that, the future one that we're going to do in the future is going to be corporate finance management, and that's for the fall of 2024. So we'd love for you to join us and to learn more about financial management within your business. But tonight, what we're going to be talking about is an exciting topic on risk, law, and contracts. So this one, hopefully you won't get bored. Hopefully you'll stay with us. There's lots of great information here that you can take away and put into your business, but it is a bit dry, so hopefully I've made it creative enough, and we've kind of made the slides a little bit creative as well to help you with that type of stuff. So let's get started on risk, law, and contracts. So first thing, some of the learning objectives in the CLP course are as follows. In the book, it talks about understanding risk and risk management. We understand the insurance needs of your business that you need to have, how to maintain appropriate secure measures within your company, understanding the Lien Act. We're going to talk about how to make decisions on corporate ownership structure that you need to have, how to develop and understand landscape contracts, how to implement and work in public safety measures. So that's a lot. So we kind of broke it down into three areas that you can talk about. So how to manage risk, how to do contract law, and then how to do business structures we're going to talk about. So first, what we'd like to do is just kind of open up to everyone and just kind of give us some feedback. If you type in the notes, any questions that you might have, or from the audience, we're going to take some audience questions as well for that type of thing. So, but yeah, the question is, which objective are you most interested in when it's coming to this type of thing? So we typically hear a lot about snow, and we're going to do another supplementary session in October on snow, and just kind of break that out. But majority of the clients we get are asking about snow, legal stuff on snow. But again, type some questions in it or reach out to me if you're looking for, if you're just seeing this recording, reach out to me. We're happy to walk you through that. So next, really risk. So risk in definition is a condition in which there is possibility of adverse deviation from a desired outcome that is expected or hoped for. That's the dictionary version of that, and what they define it within the CLP program. So again, very legal, but really that's what it is, and that's what we're talking about tonight: how to reduce your risk as a business owner within your business. So primary risks in itself in many ways. So what are the ways that you're at risk within your company that you need to be aware of? So in the book, it talks about fire, talks about natural disaster, talks about theft, talks about damages to asset, and then talks about third-party liability. From a consulting firm, we have seen each one of these in various businesses. So it's not that any one business is immune to this. As an industry, though, some of them are higher. Theft, most of our companies go through theft. A lot of our companies go through damages, especially in the wintertime. We always seem to be damaging in the winter, just part of the business. We damage people's property, we write off vehicles, we drive over vehicles and loaders, and then obviously the third-party liabilities, typically the slip and fall. So the three of the five are typically, we are at high risk, and we see this all the time. The fire and theft, the fire and the natural disaster, not as much, but the other three is pretty typically common for a landscape contractor to deal with. Now, the other four categories that the book talks about is customer risk, what's our personal risk that we have involved, what's a property risk, and then what's market risk. So in the market risk right now, including economics, your business structure, your pricing, your competitors, stuff like that, we're going to talk a little bit later on. But again, just knowing so you know that there's other risks that are involved in this. So the book talks about, in this type of thing, we kind of made it a little bit funny for you, but it talks about the wheel of misfortune. And again, so just kind of go through it. So again, we talked about fire, we talked about natural disasters, we talked about burglary and business swindles. If you are within the industry, if you are a supplier right now, it seems to be every supplier is getting hit. We have a client in the Waterdown area, and it just seems to be like the stuff being stolen from their yard is just ridiculous. We're seeing lots of people just walking up and breaking into people's locations. Not even the security cameras aren't helping. People not even masked anymore. They're just being able to steal because there's just a lack of accountability and lack of police service to be able to do that. So shoplifting, not as much. I would say if you own a retail store, there's probably a high risk of that. Bankruptcy is a huge risk right now. We're seeing the economy start to switch right now. People aren't spending as much money. Contractors aren't making enough money. So again, on your accounts receivable, you need to make sure you stay on top of your accounts receivable, or even with your clients. Don't get too far on a contract when you're especially on design build with getting too far out. You should always be fairly close with the resources you put into the client versus what you're getting paid. You'll kind of want to keep those things tight. If you're doing maintenance and snow, don't let people get 2 or 3 months behind. You got to stay them fairly close there, or you're going to lose that money. Competitors from former employees are at risk. We have a key of loss of losing employees. Again, we've seen that. We're coming out of that during COVID for sure. We're seeing less and less of that now, but it's still there. Employee being dishonest. We see that all the time on timesheets. So if you're not running some sort of digital timesheet with some sort of variation, whether it's GPS or someone checking the timesheet, that's where we see huge dishonesty that's happening within it. Lots of bad debts. Again, we're talking about the economy switching right now. People are going to have to write off more bad debt than ever before. Product liability, not a huge thing, but it is still there. Again, on the supplier side, it's higher. And the on-premises injury. Again, not very many of us on the contracting world have that, but you can definitely see that if you run a garden center or if you're having a slip and fall. That's where that slip and fall comes in. So again, there's lots of, as a contractor, this is when I go through this, I'm like, again, why do we do this as an industry? Because there's so much risk that we open ourselves up to. So again, just a good reminder of some of that. So again, we have the risk. We know that. We accept that when we started the business. Most of us have gone into business knowing these risks because that's what it is in the industry. But now, how do we manage this? How can we help you avoid some of it? Some of it you're going to have to live with no matter what. And then how do we transfer or share that risk with our peers and within the industry? So they give us some good information about how to do that. So on the customer and public risk, the book talks about a product. So does the product failure that can happen? Let's say that a lot of times what we'd see is maybe interlock pavers. We see a lot of times if the manufacturing comes through and maybe the color of it is not correct or all that type of stuff. Again, a lot of that type of stuff we see a lot of that stuff. So work with your manufacturers on helping that type of stuff. Plant material, we just know plant material dies. It's a living thing. So you have to make sure when you're quoting plant material that we would say some people carry between 10 and 20% of the plant material is going to die. Residential is quite a bit lower, but on commercial jobs, it's quite a bit higher. So you need to carry that cost of that plant replacement in when your original quote. So how to get around that. On-site injury, again, if you're in a landscape yard, you have more people walking around, you have forklifts, you have dump trucks rolling around. For landscape contractors' offices, not a lot of personal on-site injury. But again, you just don't know unless you have clients coming to your office, maybe to look at landscape design or coming to look at product. But again, if you have a supply yard, you're at higher risk than doing that. The public liability, again, this is the biggest one for us as contractors. So job site entry, people are curious, people want to know what's going on. Even just the idea that a homeowner comes in to see what's going on in the job, right? They're curious, it's their backyard, they want to be able to do that. So a lot of our contractors are, protecting themselves against that maybe one of the kids run to the back, trying to sit there and say, make some boundaries like, hey, we'd love for you to come see the backyard, but not between, after 5 o'clock or after 4 o'clock, something like that. Please do it because there's a lot of equipment moving and stuff like that. So auto accidents, again, lots of that in our industry. Again, especially in the wintertime, we're asking our staff to come out, drive equipment, drive vehicles when everyone else is telling the whole world is telling everyone to stay home, and we're actually heading out on the road. The road conditions are the worst. People are tired. People aren't paying attention as much. So that is a huge issue that we want to do. And then again, slip and falls. If you're in the snow industry, that's just part of it. That's there, and we can talk to you about how to protect yourself against slip and falls, but it is going to do. So how do we avoid them? How do we live with them? And how do we share is really, really important to be able to do that. So bad debt results from one of the following. And again, if you own a business for any more than maybe a year, you have seen this. So contract disputes, honestly, design build, we see this all the time. If we don't do a good job at the very beginning explaining what you're going to get, that's the great thing about 3D drawings, right? You can actually walk person through it. Not getting the detail about the stone, starting a job before all the details are in place, color, exactly pictures, all that type of stuff. At the very end, it becomes a client that's not happy or satisfied with it is going to hold back typically the last payment. And we see that. So don't do that. Final distress of a customer. Again, during COVID, we don't see tons of that, but we are going to, it is going to become even more of this, and especially on the customer side of it. So if you work for large corporations, I think we're going to start to see some of those large corporations default right now. So again, make sure you're reviewing your accounts receivable, I would say once a week, and you're chasing that money. You've earned that money. You've put the labor, you put the material in it, you've used the equipment on it, but just not to actually go collect that money is really something we see over and over again. If you have money over 90 days, 120 days, or even more than that, which most contractors do, every time it rolls over to that next section of, from 90 to 120, there's less chance you're going to be able to collect that money. So stay on top of it. For some reason, I'm guilty of this when we had a contracting business of not wanting to collect, but you've earned it. That money goes right to your bottom line. So if you're struggling with some financial collecting money, just stay on top of that type of stuff. And then fraud, again, not tons of it within our industry, but they're still there, and something we need to be aware of. So the 4 C's, so credit policies for managing credit. So again, as an industry, we all need credit. So it doesn't matter if we're using the bank as credit, if we're using suppliers as credit, or maybe some people are using the government as credit, or we have a loan, but we all need credit in order to survive in this industry. So the book talks about 4 C's. So it talks about character, capital, capacity, and conditions in order to get credit. So in the character part, it talks about the fundamentals, honesty, and integrity of the customer. So you have to understand that sometimes if you're asking for money, you are the customer to the bank, right? So you have to show some sort of honesty, integrity to the bank for them to loan you money. Every loan typically is put up and is a personal decision by someone at the bank. They're going to want to know, do they know you personally? Do they understand your business? Do you see some financials? The financials might not be great, but if you have a personal relationship with them and you're having an ongoing relationship, then you're apt to get a little bit more credit. So, take your banker out, talk to them about your business, start asking for credit before you need it, because as soon as you need it, they don't seem to want to help you. So the capital. Do you have the assets and the cash that you need to be able to run your business? So customers need to have sufficient capital to carry on the operations. For us, biggest capital expense we have is equipment. Most of us love buying equipment. We are equipment heavy typically in most of our businesses. And right now, getting capital for equipment is really, really easy, but that's going to tighten up very soon. Soon as the market shifts a little bit, soon there's going to be too much equipment on the market, and they're going to start tightening it. They're going to start raising interest rates. They're going to have too much inventory, and it's going to get very hard to get capital leases right soon. Right now, you can pretty much go to any manufacturer, and they're going to pretty much give you equipment at a fairly low price, but that's going to make a shift soon, so be careful of that. Does he have the capacity? Do you as the client or the customer have the ability to conserve assets and follow financial plans? So again, you need a budget. If you can show a budget and you can show to someone that you can follow that budget and it stays fairly consistent, you're at low risk for asking for capital. If you don't have a budget, you've never followed a budget, you've never have a good P&L once a month, you never follow some sort of financial plan, you're probably at a lower chance to get credit. So you are going to need the credit through the business growth. And then conditions. Again, right now, banks are very good at giving you credit. Again, everyone seems to be, money is almost free in the whole lifespan of how at interest rates, but that will change. Soon you're going to see the Bank of Canada start raising rates. And with that raising rates, people are going to want more ability to hold assets, all that type of stuff. So we can foresee that. I would say we're going to be able to see that by the spring, if not summer, you're going to start to see interest rates rise. And the Bank of Canada is doing that on purpose to slow everything down. But that means that the cost of borrowing is going to be more expensive. And it's just going to be hard to get access to cash. So again, right now, the conditions are favorable to get credit, but it will change. And I think it's good. Probably right now, it's probably a little bit too easy to get credit. So we want to be able to do that. And then you need profits. If you do not have profits, at some point, they're going to want to see that you get access to this. So it's very important to follow those 4 C's of credit within your business. Again, we talked about if you've ever seen The Office before, Michael Scott is hilarious. And there's a scene in there where he just says, I declare bankruptcy. And, he's just one of those things where he's in a bad relationship. And he just says, I'm just going to declare bankruptcy. I'm going to wash away all my debt. Well, that's obviously not how it works. But when I saw this, I was like, this is probably the perfect situation for this. So again, when you're asking for credit, especially when you're starting out, you can pretty much guarantee you're going to need to, you're going to have to personally guarantee that debt, right? All the bank is looking for is to sit there and say, if you default on this loan that you're asking for, what guarantee or what can we take back for that loan? Operational loans are the hardest to get credit for because there's not a lot of guarantee. When you get a piece of equipment, all the equipment manufacturers doing is saying, are you paying that off to the point where if we ever have to come collect that piece of equipment for you, if you can't pay it, do we have an asset there? So when you do operational loan, there's typically not an asset there because you're paying for it through like payroll or material. So the bank cannot come collect that money that you've already paid for. So typically you have to do that. A lot of our owners, eventually, once you get more mature, you start to show us some stuff. A lot of our owners want to take that personal guarantee off. But for the first, I would say 5 years, you're gonna have to put a personal guarantee. And typically, if you have a mortgage on a house, that's the easiest thing to sign up for. Be able to do that. You can ask for a letter of credit, but you can also get credit insurance as well through some financial institutions. So again, there's some options there for you, but majority of the banks right now, for looking for operating line of credit, are looking for a personal guarantee. So if you don't own a house, maybe your mom and dad can help you or a family friend, but there is ways around that type of stuff. But again, if you have a good credit rating, you pay your bills on time, again, you have access to it. Again, the higher interest rate, the more risk you have that the bank sees, the higher interest rate you're going to be charged. If you're low risk, you're going to pay maybe prime plus a couple points. If you're high risk, you're going to play prime plus 10 points or something like that. So again, when you get your credit, when you get your loan, you want to know what the interest rate is on that loan that you're looking for. So again, that interest rate goes up based on the amount of risk that you have. So what is, as an owner, what is your personal risk in doing this? So what is at risk for you? And three typical things the book talks about. Competition for former employees. We've all had those employees that work for us. Typically, they're one of your best employees, and they decide that they're going to go out on their own and they can do it better. And that's a huge risk because a lot of those times that former employee is maybe your best crew leader, or maybe they were an ops manager for you. But there's really high risk that that person's going to do that. There's a lot of times you've invested a lot of them. They might know your clients. They might know your pricing. So you have to understand that that's at risk. So I always like to remind contractors that we spend so much time talking about our CD players. Those people are your biggest pain in your butt, that we don't actually spend time with our A players. And those A players need that attention. We don't give it to them, and we don't spend time with them. We don't ask them what's going on. They are at risk to leave. And that's only because we didn't actually spend time with them. So make sure you do that. And then employee dishonesty and theft. We talked about that a couple times. Again, to me, the dishonesty and theft is definitely in the time. And then also in fuel. A lot of times if you have like on-site fuel tanks or fuel cards, if you're not tracking that, a lot of people just feel like they have an obligation to be able to sit there and say, well, I need a tank of fuel and I deserve this, because the owner's making so much money, they were not going to miss a tank of fuel. And we've seen it all over. We've seen people take jerry cans home. We've seen people siphon equipment, fuel out of equipment off-site. And really, when you get down to it, when the employee is challenged on it, they're like, well, we didn't think you were going to miss it. But again, most employees don't know how little margin we have within the industry. So again, it's trust but verify. So it's trusting people are going to fill their timesheet out properly, but you need to verify it by doing something. And to me, the best way to do it on the timesheets is a daily check or GPS check, be able to do it. So again, it just starts small. It may be like 10 minutes or maybe it's 15 minutes, but then all those 10, 15 minutes a day add up over 3, 4, 5 months to quite a bit of money that they're eventually stealing for you. But they don't see it as stealing. They just think about, like we see this all the time, where they're just like, well, I kind of forgot to time out, or I got called away, or whatever it is. There's lots of excuses for it, but it happens way too much. So again, trust but verify on timesheets and what employees are doing. Next one is property risk. So again, fire, natural disasters, incidents, and theft. We've talked about this. Again, fire, not as much. If you own a shop and you have flammables in the shop, we have seen that, especially if you have a mechanic in house. Simple things like what I learned in shop originally: don't throw oily rags in a box, because they are going to combust. If you don't have a shop, you're less at risk. If you are doing stuff like, let's say you're a lease or you're renting a piece of property, you need to have fire. You need to hold fire insurance on that rental. The landlord, a lot of times the landlords don't do that. They'll have fire insurance on the building itself, but you need to have fire insurance on the content of what you're doing. So you need to let your insurance broker know that, hey, we're renting this piece of property or this shop, and here's typically what we have in as content insurance for that. So you got to make sure you're be able to do that. Natural disasters for us not as happen. Every time you kind of watch the news, you look at Florida or the east coast of the United States, and they're getting tornadoes and hurricanes and all that type of stuff. Not tons of it around here in Canada, but it's definitely a risk. Accidents are huge. Again, we've talked about that. Every time, always in the winter season, if you have a big snow operation with loaders, every time we always seem to run over a car with a loader every season. So again, that's just part of doing business, right? So you got to be able to watch out for that. And again, we've talked a lot about theft, so I'm not going to spend on that time. Insurance. Again, if you're looking for a deeper dive in insurance, in October, we're actually doing a deep dive on insurance, specifically around insurance for you as a business. So if you're able to come out, that would be great. If not, then you can watch the video online. But we're going to talk a lot about, like, how much insurance do I need? What type of coverage and products should I have? And then what should be covered on that type of stuff. So insurance is one of those things where a lot of times what we have is we have our insurance broker that we've always used. Maybe that was your mom and dad's broker, or maybe a broker that you had before you started the business that you were just able to call and say, hey, I'm starting a business. So they kind of pick up for that type of stuff. But as your business grows, you need some specific insurance needs. So the book talks about what should be covered. So you need to be able to cover your employees. So that's your WSIB that's already preset for you at certain rates that you have. But again, that's the type of thing that you need to manage that insurance claim. So if you have let's say you have a lost day of lost, or I can't remember the actual term of it, workplace loss, like someone is off work and WSIB has to pay for them to be off, that really affects your rates. So you want to make sure you have a list of stuff that someone can do on light duty. Really, really important for them to do it. Even if they come and just sweep the shop or you have filing to do, it's cheaper to pay them to do light work than it is for them to be off that day. So you have to, typically we recommend that contractors have light duty lists of tasks that you can have someone do. Even if they come in for 3 or 4 hours, still pay them for the full day, but they're coming in doing something. Don't leave them at home. Obviously, insurance on equipment is easy. That's normal. Most of us don't go without that equipment insurance. On the equipment insurance, though, make sure, we see this all the time, a lot of times we'll buy a new piece of equipment and we call the insurance company to say, hey, by the way, we bought a new pickup, please get the insurance off. What we see, though, is that when we sell assets, we don't tell the insurance company that we sold the asset. So a lot of times at the end of the year, we go through and you go through your list of what's been covered, and there's always tons of assets that you're still paying insurance on, but you don't have anymore. So just make that part of your checklist when you sell a piece of equipment to let the insurance company know, because you don't need there's no sense paying for that insurance on that one. Inventory, again, if you have a supply yard, all that type of stuff, you can get inventory for that type of thing. So make sure you're covering that. Building and land fixtures, we talk about building, again, content insurance for sure at the minimum. But again, if you have land, then you can get that type of insurance. If you have a loan against or a mortgage on a property, the insurance is required. Right? So all that is already covered in it. And that's the loan company actually pre-asking that. Liability insurance, again, most people understand the liability insurance. Liability insurance is dirt cheap right now. So most people are at 1 million, 2 million. I would say right now as a business, get $5 million worth of liability insurance. It's not a costly amount for your business to have a higher liability insurance, maybe a couple $100 more a month. But I would say right now, $5 million should be the minimum that you want to carry for liability insurance. You can get business interruption insurance as well. Not very many clients have this because you really have to buy a package for that, so you have to really understand that. We have a client that has a snow package that if they get X amount of snow over the season, because they do big commercial work, they actually have a policy in place based on centimeters. So they bought in a program that's like, if it snows more than 300 centimeters, they can actually make a claim against that centimeters over that type of stuff. So very specific, but there is models out there for that. Vehicles, we talked about that. Again, pretty basic. And then the one thing most companies don't have is that you need life insurance as an owner. If you have a partnership, you need to have life insurance for each of the owners. That's payable to the owners, the person that perhaps would want to leave the company or that passed away, that gets paid out to the family. So they can buy your shares out. That's the minimum amount that you want. Again, life insurance is something you can write off as a company expense. So it is one of those benefits right now that you can have that, again, you don't want to be able to lose if you were to die today, the company will pay for this policy that your significant other or your family can be looked after financially. You don't want to leave them with that burden of the debt that goes within the business. So again, make sure you take some life insurance out for the business. If you have a partnership, please, please, please get a policy that's in place. And again, find someone that can be able to do that for you. What type of insurance do you have? Is like, again, you can have fire, theft, earthquake, flood, sewage backup, loss of income. Again, there's lots of stuff you can add to it. Obviously in Ontario, not a lot of flood. You don't need a lot of flood insurance. Earthquake, we really don't need. But again, think of your area, what you want to be able to have for that. Tip of the day that we thought about: find a broker who understands your business and shop around regularly to other brokers, not just companies. So again, if you know someone peer to peer within this group, ask them, who do you have for a broker right now? The broker is there to help you find proper policies, but find someone that specializes in it. Like, ask your broker, how many contractors do you deal with, right? Because if they don't deal with contractors, they probably don't have best the best rates or the best people in the world to be able to help you with that. Again, find someone who specializes in helping contractors with that, and then they're going to be able to set you up with the best policy. If not, you're probably overpaying for insurance or don't have enough coverage. But again, find someone to do that. And I think, honestly, as much as I want to be loyal to our current broker, I think you need to shop it around once a year. Because there's just big gaps right now. There's big swings happening. My prediction is that snow insurance is probably going to come down, which would be an amazing thing to happen. So I'm praying that for the winter of 24-25, that we're going to see some insurance go down for snow insurance and liability. But you need to contact your broker regularly and say, hey, where are my rates at? Because every year we've seen a 10 to 20% increase on policies. I don't think that's sustainable, so I'm hoping it'll come down. So again, call your broker, see if he can help you out with that. Types of insurance coverage. So again, commercial property, which is, again, if you're leasing, renting something, that's where it is. Commercial vehicle, again, if you're just starting out and maybe you've been like, I bought a truck, I'm a truck and a truck. I bought a truck, it was my personal truck, I'm starting to use it for work now. And then you buy a second truck, make sure you move it over for commercial policy. It's different policy, it's more expensive, but it is different for you. And if you ever find out that your insurance company finds out you're using a residential policy on a commercial job, you're going to probably have a big issue. So make sure you do that. Commercial liability, again, most liability insurance is commercial if you're asking for that. And then everyone has workman's compensation. Again, you have to manage the workman's comp program really, really well, or you're going to get burnt. And those rates never seem to go down on workman's compensation. So you want to be able to manage that proactively when you're doing that. Next one, again, the office, lots of office memes here, but every so often, Grant dies of boredom. So I just want to make sure you're still with me, and that we're not boring you. So hopefully you're still here and still following along. Next, we're going to talk about insurance claim management. I think early on when we started Nextra Consulting, one of the calls I took from one of our original clients, he told me, he's like, I have an envelope on my desk that I've been ignoring for a couple months. It was a slip and fall, and he just did not want to open it. He didn't want to deal with it. It was a little overwhelming. So the best advice I can give you is don't ignore it. You need to keep great records. Don't be passive on your insurance claim, but you need to stand your ground. Again, most of these things, we assume that when we have an insurance broker or a claim that come through, that they're actually working for us. And they are working for us, but they are busy as well. So you need to keep great records, so depending on what's happening, again, we can talk about slip and fall insurance and what you need for that type of thing. But if you cannot prove that you've done your training, your on-site records, all that type of stuff, if you don't have proof of it, then it's not going to stand up. If there's no record of it, there's no proof. It's on you as a client. It's on you as a contractor to prove you've done that. So if you do training with your staff and your staff don't sign off on, yes, on this day, I was taught to do this, it didn't happen in their eyes. So make sure you keep records of that type of stuff. And that could be just easily like a morning tailgate talk and be like, here's the synopsis of the tailgate talk, and here's the 8 staff that were in the room. That's enough proof to say that you trained the person on that. If you just did tailgate talk and there's no record of it, it actually didn't happen. So again, it's almost like covering your butt. Unfortunately, this is what it's come down to. Don't be passive. If you know you have a slip and fall, and maybe you think it might go to the insurance company or not, you need to take good records. You need to be proactive about it. If you know that this slip and fall has happened and it's gone through the insurance, you have to be able to call and say, hey, where's my update on this? Too many times when I work for bigger companies, we might have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 slip and falls going at the same time. And I was always like, well, I'm not hearing from my insurance broker, so everything must be good. And the one thing I said was, one day I knew that they settled on it. And I was like, what do you mean you settled it? And they're like, well, we settled it. I'm like, I want to know that if you settled it. So you have the right to, to be able to stand your ground and be aggressive with your insurance broker and be like, no, 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 I don't want you to sell this. I don't want you to sell it without my approval. So you need to be proactive about it. So make sure that you're confident and that you're owning this, because if not, the insurance brokers have got a million other things in the go. Not that they're not trying to pay attention to it, but you can't risk that not happening to you because you're too busy. So bonds in the book, it talks about bonding. Again, in the residential world, if you're in residential construction, not a lot of people are looking for bonds. In the bigger world, in the commercial world, again, bonds are starting to come more and more. If you do anything provincially, federally, or for large corporations, bonds are required more and more right now. We're seeing a lot more requests for bonds. So there's 3 types of bonds that you can get. Again, it's a different insurance, type of insurance. You definitely have to go to a bond, like a company that just does bonds. Most insurance companies don't do bonds, so you have to find a bond broker almost. But really all it is some sort of guarantee for the client that you're going to do the work. So there's a bid bond. So a lot of times before you can put it in a bid, you actually have to put a bond in that you're going to you have intention of meeting the obligations of the bid documents. So typically those bonds are a lot of money, but you actually need to put that money in before you put a bid in, right? Again, so local contractor or local GC, not a big deal, but if you're getting some big government bonds, they want the big government work, they want to see that in order to do that. Performance bonds means that you've won the work. And then what they want to make sure that you can guarantee you can get the work done according to the terms in the contracts. Typically, you need to bond about 50% of the contract price. So again, if it's a $10 million job, they might be looking for if it's $10 million, they might be looking for $5 million of a bond. Again, you don't have to pay that $5 million, but you have to take the bond out for that $5 million. So if you default, the bond company's paying that for you on your behalf. So that type of stuff. Again, you're going to see a labor and material bonds, and this typically what happens is protection here that that when you complete the job, that you are making sure you paid all the labor that went towards that job, including subcontractors, and all the suppliers were paid. This protects the person that's end project that you're doing work for, that those people aren't going to come back on the GC or the end user of that to come back after that if you didn't pay the labor and material on that. So it does protect the end user of the project, that you don't default on that type of stuff. So again, bigger jobs, you're going to see it. You're going to see it more and more as it comes in. Typically bid bonds, again, like municipal, you're going to start to see that there. And again, but you're going to see more and more of this as the industry goes in, just to protect each other. So, okay, contract law. Kind of switch topics here. So the definition of this is a contract exists when 2 more parties agree to exchange their either property, including money, or a promise of future performance. That was a really good definition of this. So common mistakes that we make as contractors is we do not use a good contract. If you're a member of Landscape Ontario, you can go to the website and there's a great contract. Anything you need, there's a template that are already set up for you. If you don't have that, let me know. I'm happy to send you a template or send you to the website. Landscape Ontario has done a great job setting up these templates for you. You can download it, change a couple things on it, and it's there to protect you. So there's no excuse why you shouldn't have a good contract that you can use. The other side of that is a lot of times that sometimes you can't use the contract. So maybe let's say you're doing a mall for a large corporation, they're going to want you to sign their contract, right? They have a set of lawyers that are really, really smart, and what they're really doing is saying they're pushing the liability down to you. So if you have to sign someone else's contract, especially for maintenance and snow, we see it all the time, take that contract, send it to your lawyer, send it to someone, but please do not sign that contract without getting some advice on what it is, because there's lots of things there that big corporation is getting you to sign that contract for you to take all the liability. And typically a small business, we can't afford to take that liability. But we hear all the time, well, I have to sign their contract because I need the work. And that just scares me when people tell me that. So again, just have another company sign it. Sometimes the corporations will change, but a lot of times they won't. They'll be like, either you sign this or I'm going to have the next contractor sign it. So sometimes you don't have a choice. But And again, that kind of goes to that blindingly signing someone else's contract. So please do not do that. We see it all the time. And again, you're going to get burned one day and you're going to wish you didn't, and it's going to be costly. So send it to your lawyer. Again, at least you know what you're signing. At least you know what the risk is for that. Hiring a lawyer. If you do not have a lawyer, you need a lawyer. Again, most lawyers right now do not cost a lot of money, like to put on a retainer. A lot of them will just do it by the hour right now, but you need a really, really good lawyer. And then the question is, when do I hire a lawyer and what for? So the book talks about doing contracts. Again, Landscape Ontario has already hired the lawyer to create a contract for you. So you don't actually have to go do that, right? So someone else has done it for you. Again, leverage that ability. You want to hire a lawyer for business structure. So if you're doing an incorporation, any partnerships, anything like that, please hire a lawyer to be able to do that. You can get some templates online, but we've seen, again, too many business structures, especially in partnerships, that have not had that lawyer business structure, and the partnership dissolves, and it just becomes really, really messy. And the cost to dissolve that corporation or that partnership is way greater than it was to hire a lawyer at the very beginning to make a good contract for that. When you're being sued, again, at some time, I hate to say this to you, but you're going to probably get sued, and you want a lawyer for that type of thing. You want to be able to trust that one. You kill your wife and her best friend. That could be one time where you need a lawyer. So again, hopefully those of you who are still with me, the whole O.J. Simpson, maybe I'm dating myself now, so some of you might not know that. But again, you want a lawyer for that. And then anytime you're being accused of a crime, and then really just generally any advice that you're looking for. So again, find someone that you trust, ask a friend. Again, if you know someone within the industry, ask someone there. I think Landscape Ontario does have a referral program or someone that you can call. Rob Kearney, I think is his name. I think he does a bunch of the writing in the trade magazines and stuff like that. So again, he does contract. All he does is contractor law. So reach out to him. Again, that's part of your membership, is to be able to do that. So, but again, have a good lawyer on your side. Fee agreements. Again, you can do all kinds of fee agreements with your lawyer. You can do fixed, you can do by the hour, you can do some sort of retainer, and then you can do contingency as well. So there's lots, depending on what you need a lawyer for, they will typically determine what you're looking for. Fixed, if you're just looking for setting a corporation, it's typically $1,500, $2,000. It's a set fee, right? So it's pretty easy to do. Typically on a slip and fall, it's typically an hourly rate, right? Because they don't know how long it's going to take. If you're needing maybe to sue someone, then they may do a contingency for you, that if you win, they'll take a certain percent of that. So again, depending on what your situation is, what you're looking for, they'll tell you up front what it is. But again, tip of the day, find a lawyer that specializes in our industry and that someone can recommend you. Don't pick your family lawyer that maybe your parents have always used, or someone that specializes in divorce, or someone who specializes in criminal, or whatever it is. Like, again, a lot of the first time I used a lawyer was someone that I needed to buy my house. But that person, all they did was real estate law. That's not a good lawyer that I needed. I knew their number and I had access to them, but they were right up front with me. They're like, Grant, you need here's someone else I can recommend. So, so you might need a couple different ones. So. Business structure, in the book, it talks about different business structure you can have. Again, I love this part of it. I'm kind of passionate about this. So, so if you're just starting out, most of us started out in the industry in a solo. I'm gonna screw this word up. Proprietorship, which means you're just a truck in a truck. It's just you. Just everything is in your name. And that's good for a little while. I would say if you're going to start out right now, I would totally go into a corporation right away. It doesn't cost that much money, but it's something you're eventually going to do if you want to grow the business. And it's just something that's just easier to do from day one. Again, most incorporation paperwork does not take that much time. It's templated, and it's really easy to do, but it's worth the investment up front to be able to do that. But again, it just protects you. Eventually, it protects you from your personal from the business. For the first couple years, it doesn't matter because everything you're going to have is kind of co-signed. But eventually, you're going to want to be able to do that. And again, it's just really important. Things happen. They call it accidents for a reason. We've had a situation where one of our clients, the driver had killed another driver. Totally accident. It wasn't the driver's fault, but the company got sued, right? And in the corporation, it protects the owner from what happened within the corporation. So again, we're just trying to protect your investment. We're trying to protect your family from what happens in the business. Not that we're trying to skirt or hide from the responsibility, but you don't want that responsibility there, especially on one of those freak things that happen. So if you have a partnership, again, please, please, please set a proper business structure for partnership. Always start to think about how does one partner exit the business, and that needs to get written down. It's kind of like marriage. Like when you first get going, you're like, oh, this is amazing. We're never going to fight. This is amazing. Like it's great. But you'll have to think about eventually those partners are going to start fighting for whatever reason, and you want to have an exit strategy. And what does that exit strategy need to be? And make sure it's written down for you able to do that. So, but you have to have that in a partnership. And again, get your lawyer to be able to do that, to do that. Even creating a shareholders agreement, right, is really, really important. Just because you have a corporation, you need a shareholders agreement to go with that. But again, with a great attorney, that great attorney is going to tell you that next step that you need for that. So that's a lot of information for today. Thank you so much for staying with me. I appreciate it. So as we leave you tonight, we just want to make sure, here's some final questions for you that can take away in homework. What do you do well as a company in this area? So based on all the information we gave you, what are things that you can be like, yes, we're doing this really, really well. Maybe we have a great insurance broker that really knows our business, or maybe we have a great lawyer that we can contact, or we've downloaded the LO contract and we're using it all the time. What is it that you're doing really, really well? What can we celebrate that you're working in the business? But the other side of it is, what areas do we need to improve? So maybe you're not incorporated. Maybe you've been in business for 4 or 5 years. You're sole proprietary, but you need to go and create some incorporation papers. So again, just what can be done? What can you implement in the next 30, 60 days to improve? Maybe your insurance broker right now, you need to look for a new insurance broker, or maybe you need to find a new policy. Maybe you need to shop it around. So those are the type of things that we really encourage you. We want you to do takeaways tonight, to improve your business. And then the last question we ask at the end of these sessions is, how does spending time and resources on this area improve your current business? And as much as this is something that this is a kind of one of those parts of your business that it doesn't make you any money. Typically, we didn't get into business to think about law contracts and liabilities, but it is part of owning a business. And if you don't do it, that's when it affects your business the most. But please take the time, please, even if it's in the off season, we're coming into a kind of maybe a slower season. Maybe it's something you put on the agenda for the winter time, but please, please, please protect yourself. There's nothing worse than getting a call from a contractor, and we've got these calls saying, hey, I didn't do this, and I probably know when I should have done it, but here's the situation. No one wants to do that. Your insurance broker doesn't want to have that happen to you. Your lawyer doesn't want to do that. It's just being proactive with what your risks are and how to mitigate those risks and how to protect yourself. So again, be proactive about it. Take the time to do it properly. Do your research. Find those people that are in your corner, because it will save you tons of time and energy down the road when one of these things is going to happen to you. So again, we're so thankful for you. My contact information is here if you'd like specifically to reach out to me for any information. And yeah, we hope that you guys have a great summer, and we'll hope to see you back in the fall when we get back here. And we're excited to present these to you and to help you. And hopefully you've taken something away tonight to run a better business. So again, thank you, everyone. Have a good night, and we'll talk to you soon.